All right. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
We are back. Continuing with our look at the triennial Torah portion. We this week are in Genesis chapter 14. Genesis chapter 14. We looked at 12 and 13 on last week. This week we're going to take a look at the 14th chapter, which begins to deal with in the days of Amraphel. In the days of Amraphel. Okay, so we're going to just go ahead and start reading. Hopefully, everyone is able to hit the like button, share the video, so that we can get some more viewers in here. Go ahead and share it up, like it up. There's some comments up in here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and read through the chapter. We'll read through the chapter and then we'll go ahead and talk about some of the themes that we see inside of it. So let me just go ahead and pull up for us here. Genesis Bereshit 14. Put it here on the screen for all to see. Okay, go ahead and read for us chapter 14.
Chapter 14 says, "And it came to be in the days of Amraphel, sovereign of Shinar, Aryak, sovereign of Eleazar, Kedorlaomer, that's a good name, sovereign of Elam, and Tidal, sovereign of Goyim, that they fought against Bera, sovereign of Sodom, Bersha, sovereign of Amorah, Shinab, sovereign of Admah, Shemeber, sovereign of Siboyim, and the sovereign of Bela, that is Soar. All these joined together in the valley of Siddim, that is the Salt Sea. 12 years they served Kedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they rebelled. And in the 14th year, Kedorlaomer and the sovereigns that were with him came and struck the Rephaim in Ashtaroth Karnaim, and the Zuzim in Ham, and the Emites in Shaweh, Kiriathaim, and the Horites in their mountain of Seir, as far as El Paran, which is by the wilderness. And they turned back and came to En Mishpat, that is Kadesh, and struck all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites who dwelt in Hatzetzon Tamar, and the sovereign of Sodom, and the sovereign of Amorah, and the sovereign of Avmah, and the sovereign of Siboyim, and the sovereign of Bela, that is Soar, went out and joined together in battle in the valley of Siddim against Kedorlaomer, sovereign of Elam, and Tidal, sovereign of Goyim, and Amraphel, sovereign of Shinar, and Aryak, sovereign of Eleazar, 4 sovereigns against 5. And the valley of Siddim had many tar pits, and the sovereigns of Sodom and Amorah fled and fell there. And the remainder fled to the mountains, and they took all the goods of Sodom and Amorah and all their food and went away. And they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and left. And one who had escaped came and informed Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt by the terebinth trees of Mamre and the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and brother of Aner, and uh, they had a covenant with Abram. And when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his 318 trained servants who were born in his own house and went in pursuit as far as Dan. And he and his servants divided against them by night and struck them and pursued them as far as Hobah, which is on the left of Damasek. Uh, and so he brought back all the goods and also brought back his brother Lot and his goods, as well as the women and the people. And after his return from the striking of Kedorla Omer, uh, the sovereigns who were with him, the sovereign of Sodom came out to meet him at the valley of Shawah, and that is the sovereign's valley. And Melchizedek, sovereign of Shalem, brought out bread and wine. Now he was the priest of the Most High El. And he blessed him and said, "Blessed be Abram of the Most High El, possessor of the heavens and the earth. And blessed be the Most High El, who has delivered your enemies into your hand." And he gave him a tenth of all. And the sovereign of Sodom said to Abram, "Give me the people and take the goods for yourself." But Abram said to the sovereign of Sodom, "I have lifted my hand to Yahweh, the Most High El, the possessor of the heavens and earth, not to take a thread or a sandal strap or whatever is yours, lest you should say, I have made Abram rich, except only what the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men who went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre. Let them take their portion."
Okay, very good. Okay, all right, very good. Let's go back up here. Lots of interesting things you see over here. First of all, we look at how this all begins. It talks about in the days of Amraphel, this king of Shinar. We know that Shinar was Babylon. That's the place that ends up being what we know of as in history as Babylon. I guess what we know, I guess, is somewhere around Turkey or something like that, where Babylon is. Um, but when we look over, it's interesting that we see kind of a this ruler, this Chedor La Omar person, who he was a ruler over these areas. They named him predominantly, I guess. There was these other kings that they named also along with him. But he seems to be kind of the one that was, kind of in the forefront. Even we see over in verse 1, he's not mentioned first, but by the time you get down to verse 4, it talks about these other nations that served him, right? And then when they came into battle, it was those other the nations, against this Kedorla Omar individual. It's interesting when we see just how I like to think that we live in civilized society, but it seems as if these people also lived in civilized societies. And you have, over time, when people say, the way that you're ruling me is terrible. I want to fight against you. Revolution. Do we have revolutions anymore?
They have revolution the other year.
You talking about January 6th?
Yes.
That's gonna go down if that goes down in the history books as a revolution, and I'm shaking my head at that.
It's a very sorry revolution.
It was pretty sorry. Was it like an hour or something?
They said they was on a revolution.
I'm saying that these people, 12 years they was 12 years a slave over here against Kadorla Omer, and in the 13th year they said no more. I don't want to do this anymore. Tired of this. They're not the best example because they fought. It seems they put up a good fight maybe for a year, but in the 14th year, he said that's enough of this and shut the whole thing down, right? And so, in the midst of all this, we have Lot, right? Because we know that he became a resident, of one of these places over here near Sodom and Gomorrah. And so one of the places that it's interesting when you look at all of these names, by the way, these places, these are like the ancient names of these locations, which, even in biblical times, they end up changing, becoming, new. But these are these areas, which, basically is the area of the promised land, which has these different peoples that are possessing these areas over here, right? And so, anyway, we see Lot is mixed up in all of this stuff, because of where he decided that he wanted to live in this place. It's interesting when we look at this person here, Amraphel. It looks like Raphael, but it's not that. If we look at his name here, it actually means sayer of darkness. Right? This king, his name literally means, according to BBB, sayer of darkness. Let me just see here. I gotta move my face out of the way so I can click on this here. Hold on 1 second here. There we go. All right, so thinking about, again, Lot, right? He's over here. He gets mixed up with these people who try to revolt against these people and fail. And then he's carried off in the spoils of the battle, right? It's interesting when we think about Lot, where there's so many things that happens. To me, it seems that, far a long time ago, it was time for Lot to move somewhere else.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was that kept him over in this area. I guess when you think about people in the times of you know what do you call it when you go to a place and you you end up there, like if you go and you not immigrate, like if like what they did in America, they went out and they did to the west and they start living there. I don't know. They take these lands, no one's living there. They take them as their own. I guess he felt some type of connection to this place that he went over to, and began living there. I guess I can understand the idea of having a connection to this place that he's probably at this point cultivated land, and he has the first tree that he planted or whatever. He built his hut or whatever for his family to live in and things. And you have all this stuff going around you, but this is my corner of the earth, right? This is what I've been given. I'm not going anywhere, right? I can only imagine that these were the thoughts that Lot may have had, because the other people of these areas, they were fed up. There was enough going on for them to give up their comfortable lives and start a rebellion. There was enough going on for them to say enough is enough, and we got to get out of here. But for Lot, he said, "Nah, we just gonna stay right here. We just gonna stay right here. It's not that bad. I'm not going to even get into all of this." But yet and still, Lot suffers from the consequences of not going. Right? He suffers from the consequences of staying in this place. Huh?
Yeah, when there's all these fights happening.
Well, I'm saying before the fights. I'm saying whatever the atmosphere was for those 12 years that the people said, we can't take this anymore. The whole time, Lot says, I'll just stay here. We don't know if Lot joined in the fight, but it seems like he just was like a person that lived in the region that he just suffered from the effects. And so the thing that all of this caused me to really think about, if we go down, let's focus on verse 12. Read verse 12 again for us.
Verse 12 says, "And they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and left."
Oh, that's good. Okay, so Lot was a casualty of war. Lot was a casualty of war. He lived in this place that must have been contrary to it had to be contrary to what a good life, quote unquote, should be, because again, the situations led to his being conquered, right? But what we can see from this is that he lived in a world that was contrary, to say the least. He lived in a world that was contrary to himself. And he had a way about himself that was a way. And we can know that his way was contrary to the way of the people that was there, but still he lived in this place. And so when we look at things like what it says over in First John, read First John 2:15 through 17.
15 through 17 says, do not love the world, nor that which is in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. Because all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world passes away, and the lust of it. But the one doing the desire of Elohim remains forever.
Okay, very good. So when we think about the idea of the world, right? Do not love the world, nor that which is in the world. If you love the world, if you have a close connectivity with that which is defined as or categorized as being part of the world, it says the love of the Father is not in you. Right? When someone's able to look at your ways, and your ways are indistinguishable from that of the world, then you actually are part of the world. When we look over here and we look at these verses where it talks about the fact that the love of the Father is not in the one who loves the world, it kind of passively helps us to understand that the love of the Father causes you to look different from the world. Right? It kind of, and it hints, this verse hints at that, right? The love of the Father causes us to actually love things that are different from that which is connected to the world. If there are things, if there are things that all the world is doing, I feel like you have to just automatically assume that is something that you shouldn't be doing, right? If all the world's doing it, is bad. It's probably bad. But at the same time, when we look at this verse, what we also see in this verse is the fact that we live in places where the vast majority around us is functioning in a way, and we live in a different way. And so when you think about Lot, where he lived in Sodom, right? He lived in Sodom. He lived in a place that was totally contrary to his own ideals and morals, but he still lived there. But he didn't allow for those ways to shape and mold him as an individual just because he lived there. I assume he tried his best to kind of live in his island inside of Sodom, so that he was able to not be connected to the world. And so when we think about Lot, Lot, it kind of gives us some interesting pictures, because we live in this place. We live in this place. This place is absolutely wicked, right? You look around and you see the behaviors of people, and you see all of the things that people call normal, and it's these things are atrocious, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yet we have to be able to set some type of boundaries and distance ourselves to a degree from all of these things, specifically the world's influence over us. As much as the world tries, the quote unquote world tries to influence us, we have to remain strong and steadfast in righteousness.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at 1 John 2:16, we have kind of a definition of the world, right? The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and pride of life is not of the Father, but of the world. The lust, the inordinate affections of the flesh, right? The inordinate affections of the flesh, right? And so we have to think about what is this, because the Most High said, he said through John over here, the love of the Father is not in you if you love the world. And the world is the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. And so what is that saying? Like, first of all, what is this word over here in the Greek? I'm saying that it's inordinate affections. This says longing, especially for what is forbidden, concupiscence, desire, lust after. And so is this saying that you can't have a desire for that which is of the flesh? Lust of the eyes. You can't look at something with your eyes and desire it. That's kind of what you do every time you go to the grocery store, or anytime you go clothes shopping or something, right? You look at a thing with your eyes and desire it. Is that what it's saying? Is that what the world is? The lust of the flesh, a longing. If you're a single person and you never long after another single person, that's opposite of you. Not the same. He's grabbing a cup. If you never long after someone, then you're gonna always be single, right? You're always gonna be a single person. And so I think when we look at this word, to lust, to long, to desire, we have to think about this little caveat here, especially for what is forbidden. Okay. Sin, if we just broke sin down to the 10 commandments, this 10 commandments is really about doing things in their proper order, right? We have an Elohim, the Most High Yah, the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? He wants for us to deal with him. But when we start dealing with other gods, right, we stepped out of bounds, right? And so we get outside of order. Okay. He's given us a day, right? He said that this day is a set apart day, and it's a holy day. It's the first thing that the Most High said was sanctified, in the Bible. He never said nothing else was holy before he said the Shabbat was holy. And so we have to remember that and keep it that way, right? And when we don't, we step out of bounds, right? He's given us parents that he wants for us to honor and respect and have their thoughts and desires be, weighty in our actions, right? When we honor them. When we step outside of that, we sin. We break the commandments, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in order for us to be a son and a daughter, or in order for us to have sons and daughters, we have to, at some point, desire things that are of the flesh. And so, again, this prohibition here is dealing with maintaining boundaries, right? You can desire something that's lawful to desire, right? But if it's not something that's lawful for you to be desiring, then now you're dealing with issues. And so when we think about, and again, and I think also the severity is also a thing, right? When your world revolves around your carnal desires, right? Because you have carnal desires. If you sit here long enough, you're going to get thirsty, right? That's a carnal desire. If you haven't ate for a certain period of time, you have a carnal desire, right? But if your carnal desire is the thing that kind of motivates your world, it motivates your life. This is what we're talking about when we deal with this idea of this prohibition: lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, pride of life. When these things are your leading influences in your world, how can you be the Father at the same time, right? When He is your Elohim, right? It's all about dealing with that command that deals with understanding that Yahweh is your Elohim, right? Because when you allow for your carnal desires to get into that zone of inordinates, when they get out of place, when you begin to live your life trying to appease your carnal appetite, this is what we're talking about over here. And so when we think about Lot, where he lived amongst these people who were at the pinnacle of appeasing their carnal desires. They were at the very top of it. However, Lot still was able to remain uninfluenced by his surroundings. Let's look at another verse over here. Let's go over to John. We're talking about Lot, and we're talking about the fact that he lived in a place that was a terrible place. And we're able to identify with Lot because we live in a place that's a terrible place. We have many things, amenities. We have many amenities in this place that we live, but it don't take away from the wickedness of the place. It's a terrible, terrible place.
It didn't look like it was that terrible when we was like in our video with Sukkot, but we was up against people celebrating Halloween. Like,
we were in as that's interesting. Yes, we did in fact. If you are a subscriber to the channel, you know that we put up our 2022 Sukkot reel. We're out in the wilderness, right? We're in seclusion, but we weren't so secluded because there was other people that were secluding themselves as well. But they were bringing with them their wickedness, right? Because they're observing this, these wicked holidays that for them, they made it last a whole month long. We was back for some weeks before the actual day even came, but like the whole month they dedicated to just this to the wicked fall festival that they, the people have out here in this world. But even still, we were able to, in our seclusion, be secluded from that wickedness. And so all of this is just a picture of what we have to face, for one, in our lives on a day-to-day basis. But the scripture is showing us these various examples of it that that can help us in having this understanding. Some people get discouraged, when we look around and we see there's so much going on with this one. These people are so wicked. What's the point of even dealing with these wicked people? Like they've reached the point of no return and all of this. But even those thoughts are allowing for that influence of the world to alter your thoughts. Let's look over at John, book of John. We look at First John, but look at regular John, 15 and 19. Because Lot, he had to live in a wicked world. But he was still worth Abraham's time and energy. Right? He wasn't a lost cause, Lot wasn't. And so he had redeemable qualities about himself. Lot did. Read verse 19.
It says, if you were of the world will love its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, for that reason the world hates you.
Okay, so we want for the world actually to, what do we want the world to do for us? This is in fact the desired effect that we want from the world. Let's see what it is here. It's this word here. Our desired effect that we want from the world is hatred.
Detestment.
Right?
What?
To detest.
How to detest the world?
No. This is what we want from the world.
Oh, we want them to detest us.
Yeah. Persecute us. To love us less. To be hateful. To be full of hate towards us. Right? We don't need some what?
We don't need their amen.
Well, I wasn't gonna say that. I was gonna say we don't need a anti-defamation league to stand up for us. That's what I was gonna say. I say let the world hate us. Right? Let the world be against us. Right? That's what I would desire. Because if the world loves me, then I look like the world, and I don't look like Yeshua Messiah, right? If we think about Yeshua Messiah, who strengthens us, who we're able to do all things through when we're in him, right? How are you in him yet you're looking like the world, right? That's impossible. And so I think that when we think about Lot in his situation, if in fact Lot wasn't persuaded by the places and the people and the things that was around him, if he wasn't persuaded, then he lived amongst those that were against him, and he was able to stand firm in the things that he believed in, and not be influenced by those people if he stood firm. And from the text, we can't necessarily know if he did or if he did from the text. But what we do know is that Avram, within his own self, felt there was redeeming qualities about him, and I mean, couldn't Avram have said, well, he's the one who wanted to be over there, and he's the one that stayed over there. He's the one that put himself in a situation. Why should I go and put my people in harm's way for him? Even if it was his brother, even if it was the son of his brother, his nephew. Well, that's his bed. Let him lie in it. He could have said that. Would he be wrong if he said that? He's dealing with his own consequences. You go over there. Matter of fact, he didn't even say go over there. He said you pick where you want to go.
He picked to go over there.
Picked a nice spot.
But I think that we're able to see that within Avram, he saw redeeming qualities in Lot where it was worth him doing. And so I'm saying that again, the text as we read it don't specifically tell us that Lot wasn't influenced by the wickedness. However, he can definitely give us a picture of a people with a particular set of ideals that live in the midst of wickedness, who are able to maintain those ideals. And especially when we think about the fact that this is the way that the scriptures, Messiah especially, and his disciples, this is the way that he is instructing for us to be. We can't sit up there and say, well, this is what everyone's doing. These are the things that everybody's into. This is the way of the world. We gotta get into the times. People aren't living like that anymore. It's 2022.
Yep.
We can't make these excuses for things. Like, we have to be able to remain firm and continue in the path that the Most High has created for us. Let's look at Romans 12:2.
I think if we want to get away from being around wicked people, we have to leave the planet.
You got to leave Earth. And it's the wicked people who trying to do that. The wicked people is the ones trying to leave Earth.
Trying to colonize Mars.
So how you can't escape the people. There's nowhere you can go. I feel like Lot was ahead of his time. He understood there's wickedness all around. I can't escape the wickedness. I'm just going to stay right here and live my life right where I'm at. I'm saying that where he was Those people, imagine what life must be like in order to cause the multitude of people to get together and revolt. You're talking about these 4 different kings, right? So you're talking about these 4 different nations. The 5 ones is the ones that revolt.
But they lost.
The four kings against 5. So you talk about multiple nations coming together, forming a united front, putting aside their differences for a common cause. A lot has to happen in order to allow for these things to come about. And those things did happen, right? They failed, but still, they came together and they fought hand in hand for their liberty, for what they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So think about the atmosphere that existed for them. It had to be terrible. It had to be terrible. It had to be a terrible place to be. But Lot was able to stay in his own situation and just live his life the best that he knew how, to enjoy his favorite tree that he planted in his land and to lay on his hammock. I wonder if they had hammocks back in those days. If I lived out in the country somewhere, I would have my 2 trees that that's what I want. I just want to say that I want to move to the country. I want to plant 2 trees, and I want those trees to grow up strong enough that I could tie a hammock on between them and lay in it. Okay. All right, let's go over to Romans real quick, because Lot is showing us that in spite of all that's around us, we're able to not be influenced by the world around us and continue on with our life in Messiah.
Right.
We don't need to be connected to the world. Mm-hmm. Even though we live in the world, where like the world's all around us going on. Mm-hmm. We have to be able to function in the world. I'm sure Lot had to go and go to the marketplace and mm-hmm. Do this or do that. His wife, she probably had to go and get some purple linens mm-hmm. and make some different kinds of deals and all of this. Mm-hmm. Right? But the world is not the thing that influences us. It must be the Most High. Read 1 and 2 here.
I call upon you, therefore, brothers, through the compassion of Elohim, to present your bodies a living offering set apart, well-pleasing to Elohim, your reasonable worship. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you prove what is that good and well-pleasing and perfect desire of Elohim.
Okay, very good. So when we look at this is interesting. When you look at these 2 verses, our reasonable service to the Most High is to be a set apart living sacrifice unto the Most High. A living sacrifice. So we're alive, right? But we're giving up things for the Most High. We're giving up things that are valuable to us for the Most High. We're putting our wants and needs and desires in the back, and putting the Most High's wants and needs and desires in the front. Right? This is being a living sacrifice. We're understanding what it is that the Most High would have for us to be doing in the earth, and we're making the time and putting the energy into that. Right? We're presenting our bodies as a living sacrifice. We're understanding that the Most High has for us to be on a particular path, and we are doing the things necessary to prepare the path, to walk the path, right? To navigate the obstacles of that path and continuing down it no matter what. And so, and understanding that it is our reasonable service to be doing this. This is what is naturally expected from the Most High, to the Most High from us. But an important part to doing all of those things, an important part to allowing your body to be a living sacrifice, is that you're not conformed to the world. The world is tries to shape and mold. It's interesting. It's interesting when you look at things that go on out here in this world. It's interesting, especially I find interesting that, you know, it's hard out here for, you know, being a black man, so-called black man, because all of the people that we're able to go out here and look at, you know, in this world are kind of you know, the people that look like us are kind of liberalist leaning, right? And so we have these examples of men, you know, in the forefront of you know, popularity, but they're so you know, left side leaning, and when you think about, you know, this idea, this is, you know, it's liberal, it's whatever, it's, you do what you like, you know, it's loose, right? Something's loose, it's lenient, right? It's loose, lenient, liberal. It's what's it called? What's it called when all of the words have the same alliteration? And so, you know, I was watching some of the things that was going on this week with this whole situation with, you know, these people, you know, making comments or posts or what have you. And so I watched this person, you know, who's of, you know, high popularity, speaking about somebody else who was kind of supporting this whole thing with this whole, you know, the movie and the posts and all of this. You know, it's November 5th. You know what's going on November 5th out here in these streets, right? And so when you, well, well, you know, the basketball player.
I don't know any basketball players.
A basketball player made a post about the Hebrews to Negroes book, and he stood on his post for like a whole half a week, and then he was forced to, you know, renege on his previous statements. But to have these other prominent figures kind of ridicule another person because they have thoughts about a thing, but the way in which they do it, you're not even like actually dealing with. So by the way, if you're like a black person, right, like black, like I'm about blackness, you'll criticize a white person for getting into your business, so to speak, because of things that the white person has said in the past. In other words, a white person has to be totally aligned with all of your thoughts and ideas for you to be able to accept anything that he has to say. And so you're able to discredit what the white person says because of who he aligned himself with in thoughts previously,
like 30 years ago,
or yesterday. Like everyone has to have one set of ideas. If you have if you have various thoughts and ideas, then I can accept anything that you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like, but they'll discredit you because now you're saying ABC, but yesterday you were saying XYZ. So your ABC today means nothing. But I'm saying all that is to say that these things that go on in the world is foolishness. If we get into Yeshua can be found to quote rivaling rabbis. He says things that Hillel has said, and he says things that Shammai has said. And so if I'm like these leftist, liberal, what was the other word I said? Lenient people, I would say, well, just last week, he quoted Shammai. So how's he going to sit up here and quote Hillel today? I don't want to hear anything that he has to say. That doesn't make any sense. In fact, Yeshua also said things of his own self that was against both of the things. So, but the world around us wants for us to be robots for wickedness. It wants for us to be, and you know, the things become prominent, and you know, because they, whoever they are, you know, allow for these things to come out, and you know, it's like we're there, you know, trying to put everybody inside of this box. When we look over at Genesis, those people was in their box for 12 years. But on the 13th year, they said, I'm getting out of this box. I'm getting out.
They didn't get out.
But the thing is that what we see over here, you can't beat the system. You can't beat the system, right? You don't want to live your life according to the system, you know, like Lot didn't. He transformed. You know, he allowed for himself to be transformed. He lived in the system, but he wasn't. I mean, he lived in the system knowing that he wasn't of the system, right? But he didn't try to fight the system. If he tried to fight, he probably ended up dead, right? He just did his little thing, you know, and got captured, right? But them people, they taught us that you can't win against the system, right? They're gonna overtake you, right? And that's what happens. So we have to understand that we have to live in this world. Yeshua, in Yeshua's day, It's interesting the word. I got to go back and look. If I would have thought about this and wasn't just, you know, freestyling right now. If I would have thought about this earlier, I would have double checked and seen what this thing is. There was a relationship that Israel had with Rome, and Rome literally allowed for um, Israel to have any type of rulership, you know, in their situation. It's called something when nations have this relationship with other nations inside of them, where Rome ruled Israel. Rome ruled Israel, but they allowed for Israel to have their little situation. You know, it's interesting. We see that with Yeshua when he goes before trial, right? First, he goes to the Sanhedrin, and then they go and get the word from Rome as to what they're even able to do, right? And so we live in a place that's like that right now. We live in a place that's like that. It's more than that even, right? Because you don't have no dual citizenship, and you know where you are. You do what they tell you to do in life, and you get around their system the best way that you can, and you conform to the rules that they put forth. Where you're allowed certain liberties, but you bet not cross the line. You know, they give us, Massa give us plenty of space.
Don't say too much.
Massa give us plenty of space. But when you overstep your bounds, they let you know, who's in control.
They'll take your channel down.
Yeah, I mean, I only got 622 subscribers over here, so that it's not that big of a deal. I basically could say whatever I want to say. But let me get 1,000 subscribers, 2,000. You know what I mean? 1,000,000. I better not be saying whatever I want to say if I want my channel to stay up. Because, we live in this place. But, we have to live unto the Most High and not to these rulers, right? Even though they have so much control over the things that we do, they don't have any control over who our affections are directed towards, and that's towards the Most High.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to allow for our minds to be renewed, right? We have to allow for our minds to be renewed and be transformed on the inside, right? Because we, in this shell, our shell goes out and it does this or that and functions out here in this world, but we have a spiritual understanding on the inside, allowing for us to be able to know whose we are and who we are, right? But if we don't have that spiritual connection to Messiah, there's no way that we're able to function out here. But this is the only way that we're able to be pleasing unto the Most High, is if we allow for the Ruach HaKodesh to come on the inside of us and transform us and renew us, and to cause for us to be able to not have our lives be centered around carnality, but to have our mind, our lives to be centered around the Most High and Yeshua and those things which are according to Him. let's go over to Second Peter, because Second Peter, I don't know where Second Peter gets this information from, but he helps us to understand a little bit about Lot, who lived in this place that was contrary to the Most High, contrary to the ways of the fathers of Abraham. And I'm saying the fathers of Abraham because Abraham had been taught something from somewhere. And he was able to live there and maintain a certain standard for living. Second Peter 2. Start reading at verse. Let's go up. Let's see where. Let's start. These are all. Let's start at verse 4.
Verse 4 says, "For if Elohim did not spare the messengers who sinned, but sent them to Tartarus, and delivered them into chains and darkness to be kept for judgment, and did not spare the world of old, but preserved Noah, a proclaimer of righteousness, and 7 others, bringing in the flood of the world on the world of the wicked."
Okay, verse 6. We want to get to this is just reading up from the context. Read verse 6.
"And having reduced to ashes the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, condemned them to destruction, having made them an example to those who afterward would live wickedly."
Keep on.
Oh, and rescued righteous Lot, who was oppressed with the indecent behavior of the lawless. For day after day, that righteous man dwelling among them tortured his righteous being by seeing and hearing their lawless works. Then Yahweh knows how to rescue the reverent ones from trial, and to keep the unrighteous unto the day of judgment to be punished. And most of all, those walking after the flesh in filthy lust and despising authority, bold, headstrong, speaking evil of the esteemed ones.
Okay, very good. So Peter over here was privy to some information that we aren't necessarily privy to in the Torah as it relates to Lot, where it says that Lot, it says, was righteous Lot. Right? Where righteous Lot was rescued. Righteous Lot. It calls him righteous. Verse 7. Just. Equitable in character or act. By implication, innocent. Holy. Absolutely or relatively. Just. Meet. Right or righteous. So it says that Lot was in fact righteous, and then it goes beyond that and says in verse 8, for day after day that righteous man, talking about Lot, dwelling among the wicked, tortured his righteous soul by seeing and hearing their lawless works. He was in a type of prison. Lot was being tortured. He couldn't leave, right? If you're tortured, you can't go anywhere, right? So for whatever reason, Lot was, it said, his soul was tortured. His righteous soul was tortured just by seeing and hearing about the works, the lawless works of the people that was around him. It was known, it was well known what was going on over there in Sodom. But Lot was able to live there in spite of all of that. And he was able to maintain his rightness, his justness. These Peter thought so anyway. His innocence, his holiness. So in spite of his where he was, in spite of all that was going on around him, Lot, it says, was righteous. He was a tzaddik. He was an upright, moral person. Okay, so in spite of his surroundings, Lot was just. He didn't allow his world to dictate who he was. Lot did. He suffered the consequences. He still, he was taken by the people. But we could say he was still blessed because he could have been killed. Right? It was war. Right? He could have been slaughtered. They could have came, if they were abiding by the Torah, the place that they conquered, they could have killed all of the men and just took the virgin daughters. But these lawless people didn't even know what they're supposed to do with the people that they captured. They didn't have no law. They was lawless, right? And so he suffered, right? He suffered because, he was there. But he was blessed because he still had life. And so, we have to understand, like, we live in this place. There's nowhere we can escape. We don't have rocket ships to be able to go somewhere else. We're stuck here. Don't matter where you go. It don't matter if you're in America or if you're in South America, or if you're in Africa, or if you're in Europe or Asia, or any of those cold places.
Well, if you go, they even on Antarctica, I guess.
Hold on, we can't go to Antarctica. They got that blocked off, right? Yeah. But there's nowhere that you can go to escape the system. There's nowhere that you can go to be able to escape this Kedar La Omar, the king of Elam. The system, the overarching system that rules. You can't escape it. Right?
You said Amraphel, she is Babylon. King of
It's
Babylon.
Babylon, right? It's confusion. It's confusion. It's this confused tongue where they teach us these things as they're right, but in actuality, they're wrong. But we have to be able to continue in our rightness in spite of all this wrong and wickedness that exists around us, just like Lot.
Thank you.
And even though, seeing all of this stuff going on around us can be torturous, and hearing of all of the lawlessness that goes on is torturous to our very being, to our souls. It hurts you all the way down to the inside. It don't cause you to give up and say, well, if I can't beat them, then join them. Right? We have to continue on in our path of righteousness.
What's that?
No one even knows. No one even knows. Like, no one even knows what a woman is anymore. You can't just say that as someone with ovaries is a woman.
Or you could just choose all your pronouns.
Or you could just decide. It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. This Babylon that we live in. It's so ridiculous. Where you could just you're looked upon as a silly person if you let the doctor decide what you're gonna be.
That's what they say.
But it's not like he's deciding anything. He's observing something. Like he's observing what is. Like it's so ridiculous, this world that we live in, where it's offensive. It's offensive to these people for you to sit up here and talk about what you are based on what the doctor observed and said at your birth or whenever. Do women have prostates?
No.
Women don't have a prostate, so she's a woman, right? A man don't have ovarian fallopian tubes, so he's a man. Like it's scientifical, but we live in a place that's so confused that they're telling you what you should know logically. They're telling you what you should logically know of as right. They're saying no, that's wrong. And you can't escape it. This thought is going all over the place. I don't know where it started at. It's prevalent here. You might be able to go somewhere where it's not as prevalent, but there's probably some other foolishness.
Probably the Arab nations.
They got some other things.
They got other things.
They're gonna make you be Islam over there.
Kill you.
You can't sit up here and do anything against. Let them people sit up there and break into whatever Nancy Pelosi's, like this person that's attached to the government. You go over into some government person's house and see if they don't drag you out on the street somewhere and cut your head off over in one of them nations.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You ain't going to nobody's trial. They're going to drag you out in the street and cut your head off and make an example out of you. Just how you try to make an example out of her. Like, this place is crazy that we live in. And they thought that he was justified. Like, I was going to make an example of her. Because we live in this place where, it's so loose and lenient. Okay, anyway. Lot. All right, let's go on.
I'm sorry. It's going a lot. Let's
go on because, another thing, let's read again. Drop down to verse 14. Let's go back to Genesis, because this is something that we as people should consider, especially now in these days and times. Drop down, read again, start reading at 13 again.
And one who had escaped came and informed Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt by the terebinth trees of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and brother of Aner, and they had a covenant with Abram. And
14.
When Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his 318 trained servants who were born in his own house and went in pursuit as far as Dan.
Okay, very good. So Abraham, who was living his humble life, in the trees of Tabernacle. Let's see here. by the oaks of Mamre, the Amorite. Right? He was just living his life over here. Finds out about his nephew Lot. He finds out about his nephew Lot, and he puts a small army together to go take care of business. You know, we live in a time where, you know, there's a lot of things that go on in this world that we live in. And we really have to be mindful of the times and be ready. And be ready. And when I say be ready, I'm not talking about like, you know, for Messiah to come out of the sky. I mean, be ready for whatever needs to happen. If you get in a situation where you have to defend yourself, are you going to say, I was going to trust in the Most High to come and save me? Is that what Lot did? Did Lot just say, well, the Most High will protect me? The Most High might have protected him, but he was still captured. He kept him alive. That's how he protected him. But it took for Avram and his men. He said he armed his men. What's that mean? That mean he got some weapons for them? Did he train them? Did Abraham actually train these people? When it says he armed 300 men that was trained servants, did he just come across these men that was already trained? Or what was he involved in the training? Did he have a particular skill set that he was able to pass on to these men? Was he privy to a particular set of skills that he was able to share with these 318 men? Or did he just so happen to come across some men that was trained in guerrilla warfare? It seems like he had some part to play in this whole situation. He readied. Let's look at this, because I want to believe that Avram. I feel like a movie. I feel like a real movie about Abraham would be the hardest movie ever made. Ever made. If you did it right. I mean, it can have all of the things. It can have a love story. Let me put my face right. It can have a love story.
Oh, man.
It can have like family. It can have all of the things. It can have war and fighting,
action,
and blood and action.
Yes.
It can have special effects. It can have all of these things if somebody would just make the movie. I wish I had all of those skills to make the perfect Abraham movie, because in it, I would show Abraham this like guy, Avram, who's training he's standing up in front of these 318 men and he's showing them the moves. And they're like, they're all like mimicking his moves, like in like you know how like he's standing like up on this pedestal and there's like lines of men, like, and they're like mimicking his actions, and they're like doing all of the stuff that he's showing for them to do, because it says that he armed these 318 trained servants. They got trained. Oh, I was in the middle of looking at this. What do it mean when it says that he armed them? Rook, to pour out. Figuratively, that is empty. Arm, excuse me, cast out, draw out, empty, pour forth. So it literally means to pour out these 300 men. So when you think about that, understanding that Abraham poured these men out of his own self, something inside of him came out of him and was manifested through these 318 men. Trained men. Hold on. What's this word mean? Trained.
Dedicated?
Hold on. I don't know what it means.
I'm just wondering.
Trained servants. Kanik.
Yeah.
Initiated, practiced, trained. It comes from the word Chizkiah. Chizkiah. Oh, this is my kid over here. Right? It comes from strengthened, to be strengthened. So these men were strengthened from the pouring out of Avram.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so I'm saying that when something goes down, are we going to be just sitting around, hoping that something good could happen? Because that's what Lot kind of was doing. He was blessed in that his life wasn't taken, but he suffered the effects of his, where he was, and was taken, and there was nothing he could do about it. And the word got back to a go-getter, Avram, who was ready for whatever.
He probably saw all that stuff. He probably experienced things. It was like, you know what? We better get ourselves some.
And he did, and it wasn't even like he was just ready. He was just ready to go. He went in pursuit.
Yeah, okay.
And so I'm saying that we, in the same manner, have to be ready for whatever needs to happen. We have to be in such a way where, Avram, sure, was a peaceful man. But he was ready for war. He was ready. And I'm saying that that's how we, as the men of the Most High, have to be. We live in a life of peace. We're about peace. We serve the Prince of Peace. But you got to be ready for war. He found out that his kinfolk, this man who was his nephew, he calls him his brother, but it was like his son. He found out he was in trouble, and he went and got his people and said, let's go get him. And I'm saying that, especially now in these days and times, these people out here is crazy out here. They are setting traps for women at grocery stores, watching your every move, following people home, running up in people's houses, robbing them. People is just going wild out here. And I'm saying we just got to be ready. And I just thought that it was interesting to see when we look at Avram, where he was ready. Avram was ready. And it's interesting to see what armies and nations wasn't able to do. Avram did with his 318 men. Them people was oppressed, and they fought for a whole year and couldn't do what Avram did. How long it take him to do it? It don't say. He went down there It said he went and he defeated them, it says. And then he chased them. He divided his forces amongst the night and his servants and defeated them and pursued them as far as Hope. He chased them out of there and brought back all the goods and brought back his relatives with his possessions and also the women and the people. I don't know why. What's I gotta say?
Just to make it clear,
nobody left behind, right? And so he didn't just go in there and sneak attack them at night, which he kind of did get them at night. But they was never able to regroup themselves, and then they got chased out of there. Again, these people, which was smaller than the whole nation, they had multiple nations together, and they couldn't do what Avram did. But not only because he was ready, but mostly, I'm saying, because he, the Most High was on his side.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm saying that part of being the people of Yahweh, it's not just this one-sided, all I do is sit around and study the Torah. That's not all that because we have to live our life in this place that's against us. Avram, it talks about in some of the writings, like in Josephus. In Josephus, it talks about Avram, and that once he started to understand about the Most High, then he started to talk about the Most High all the time to people. And he lived in this place, where there was all, there was pagans over there, right? And so his conversation was all about the true and living God in this society of polytheists, these people who believed in many gods. And so when you think about Avram, he kind of created for himself an uncomfortable situations because of his affiliations with the Most High. And so, likewise with us, where we, decide to walk this righteous path, and you're continually dealing with people who are just, out here living their lives, quote unquote. But at the end of the day, it gets to a point where the way in which you conduct your life becomes diametrically opposed to what everybody else is doing. And so at some point, when it comes down to right and wrong, you have to make a declaration. And of course, nobody wants to be told that what they're actually doing is wrong.
Yeah.
But if you follow, these conversations down to their logical conclusions, at some point it's either going to get down to who's right or who's wrong, or just do whatever you want to do. Right. Agree to disagree. That's what people do, right? But because of our set apartness, we create, there's like an ingrown conflict that arises because of our set apartness.
Mm-hmm.
And so all I'm saying is that we understanding that, we are set apart, we are different, right? We do dedicate ourselves to the Most High who, by the way, is, against what mainstream world culture and society is all about, right? We stand on the opposite side of that.
Mm-hmm.
We have to, with that in our understanding, know and be ready for whatever is going to come against us in every situation. Just like we see Abraham. All right, let's drop down some. Let's go over to read again verses 18 through 20 here. Let me pull this up again.
And Melchizedek, sovereign of Shalem, brought out bread and wine. Now he was the priest of the Most High El, and he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram, the Most High El, possessor of the heavens and earth. And blessed be the Most High El, who has delivered your enemies into your hand, and he gave him a tenth of all. And the sovereign of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the people and take the goods for yourself.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good. All right, so again, we're able to see that, Avram wants it to be known that, first of all, what he did was only through the power of the Most High. But we see this interesting character over here, this interesting character called Melchizedek, right? And so this character, Melchizedek, comes this priest of the Most High. But who is this guy? Who is this priest of the Most High? Where did he come from? When we think about, thinking about the Most High and, the things that have to do with the Most High, at this point in the game, who is there? We got Avram, who's walking out the ways. Who else do we got? There's a tabernacle somewhere. Like, he's a priest where? He's just a random priest? Is he connected with a known people? Like, who's the people? Who's he affiliated with? Like, what is this thing that's going on with Melchizedek and his priesthood unto the Most High? Avram understood that this was a special meeting that he was having with this priest of the Most High, so much so that he gave him this offering, right? And this is a custom that it's not something that's only within Hebrew culture. People would go and they would visit with kings and high ranking people, and they would take offerings to these people, understanding, oh, this person is a high ranking individual. Let me give you it's called a tithe, right? It's a portion of your good things and that you give, right? But they understood that when you go up and you deal with these people, a way to give honor and respect to these people is to give them, these things. And so we see this is what Avram does with this priest of the Most High, Melchizedek. He gives him this offering. He pays an offering to the priest. But to me, I think it's always important to talk about when you get to this point is, who is this person here? Melchizedek is, he's just this person who is the priest of Elohim, as it says, a priest of the Most High El. But who's the people though, and where are those people? Let's go over to the book of Psalms. If I could find my cursor, we could go there. Oh, there it goes. Read this. Start reading at verse 1.
And Yahweh said to my master, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. Yahweh sends your mighty scepter out of Zion, rule in the midst of your enemies. Your people volunteer in the day of your might, and the splendors of set apartness from the womb, from the morning. You have the dew of your youth. Yahweh has sworn and does not relent. You are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. Yahweh at your right hand shall smite sovereigns in the day of his wrath. He judges among the nations. He shall fill the nations with dead bodies. He shall crush the head over the mighty earth. He drinks of the stream by the wayside. Therefore, he does lift up the head.
Okay, very good. So over here it talks about the order, according to the order of Melchizedek, right? And so the first time we hear about Melchizedek is over here in Genesis chapter 14 and verses 17 through 18. And so when it talks about after the order of Melchizedek, then so was there this king who behaved in such a way and where now there was this coming king who would come and would be like unto this individual who lived, back in the times of Avram. I mean, I guess maybe somebody could think about it in that way. Like there was a guy, his name was Melchizedek. He was this great, slightly mysterious individual who was so great that when Avram came across him, he felt the need to pay honor and give honor and respect to this person. We never hear from him again. And, he just was this great priest of the Most High. So much so, he was so great that when Messiah is spoken of, when he comes back, he's going to be after the order of this great guy that Avram came across, which he's greater than Messiah at that point. If he's the archetype, if he's the one that we look towards and able to see what Messiah is going to be, is he greater than?
He's greater than Abraham.
We already know he's greater than Abraham, but he's the one that Messiah is going to be like after the order of him. Like, that's like, people sitting up here talking about basketball players. You know what I'm saying? LeBron James is the next Michael Jordan. Right? Like, Michael Jordan's the greatest, and then there's other guys coming, and he's so great, he's going to be great like him. But that's what they saying about the Messiah, who, by the way, sits at the right hand of the Most High. When he comes, he gonna be like this guy that was walking around with Abraham. To me, Melchizedek was really great. Or what?
Yeah, really great.
ellipses. I don't have anything else to say after or.
And the mystery part, the mysteriousness matches the level of the Messiah because you don't know where he came from or where he goes. He's talking about how mysterious the Messiah was, I suppose.
Yeah, Messiah is, in fact, mysterious. He's manna. All right, what is it? Did Melchizedek, priest of Salem, need the people to be a priest unto Yahweh? Is Melchizedek ministering unto Yahweh and not unto the people until Abraham? I don't know. I don't know. The scriptures don't give us that, right? I assume because of what I know, like I have an understanding of what a priest is only based on what I know from the Torah. And so in the Torah, when we see a priest is that intermediate person who is a picture of the Most High to the people. And he's and right in the reverse, the people unto the Most High. He's the one that stands in between, right? And so when I think about priests, my idea of priest is formed by the way that the Torah describes it for me. So in my mind, I feel like if there's a priest, then there's people. It says where he's from, but who was those people? Because the people that resided in the place that became the promised land, the people from Jerusalem, they wasn't. If Salem is Jerusalem, right? It could be some other place. But if Salem is the place, like if he comes from the place that ends up being the promised land, I thought them people was heathens. I thought the Most High sent Israel in there, and Israel misplaced heathens. That was a long generation of heathens.
So they had to. The Most High knew that it was going to go to them. It was going to go to Abraham, but they had to ripen in their iniquity first. They had to
reach a level of maturity in their heathenistic ways. Did we read that already?
No. It's probably next chapter.
He said that the time of the Amorites is not yet come. The fullness of their wickedness at that point hadn't even reached its full wickedness. And so, but this is just my thoughts because the scripture don't give us that, right? We don't know. But what I would say, oh, that's okay. We didn't read that part yet. So I'm saying just in the, together here. I'm sure we've all read it, right? That's in the next episode of. But I think that I don't know how to think about. I don't know how to think about a priest without a people. The same way I don't know how to think about Kool-Aid without sugar. Like my worldview of Kool-Aid includes water and sugar. Likewise, my worldview of a priest includes people.
What about king?
King as well. You're a king of what? You're a king of what? You can't be a king without a people. You got to be king and a people. Melchizedek,
the king and a priest,
was the king priest, right? And so, likewise, how we are a nation of kings and priests, a royal priesthood. There's a people, but there's also the king aspect of it. And so I'm saying that Again, the scripture don't give us that, but my thoughts on the matter is that this is I'm saying this is Messiah. This is Yeshua, pre-incarnate. And this one said, this is not a person, a regular person, just walking around. It's Yeshua. It's the one who actually sits on the right hand of Yah. Let's look at let's look at Acts chapter 7, 55. Avram has this encounter with this amazing encounter with this guy who's a representative of the Elohim whom he serves. At this point, I don't know who else serves the Most High at this point. And certainly nobody that Avram knows, because he left from where his people was at. All the people that he knew, he left. And he's going to he's a strange man in a strange land where nobody's doing the same thing that he's doing. The only connection that he has to people is Lot. And he got captured. He goes back and uncaptures the people who he's connected to. And so, I really don't think that, I could be wrong. I really don't think that Melchizedek, who met with Avram, was a regular man. He was, in my thoughts, the same way that the Most High with two of his servants came and meet with Avram.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing is happening over here. He met with somebody who looked as if they was a person, where he was able to do physical things with them, but it was a theophany. It was a physical interaction with the Almighty. Let's look at Acts 7 and 55. Read 55 and 56.
But
just read 54.
And hearing this, they were cut to the hearts and gnashed the teeth at him. But he, being filled with the set-apart spirit, looked steadily into the heaven and saw the esteem of Elohim, and Yeshua standing at the right hand of Elohim. And he said, "Look, I see the heavens opened and the son of Adam standing at the right hand of Elohim."
That's the spot where Yeshua dwells. And I'm saying Yeshua is like himself, but Yeshua ain't like nobody else. He's the one that somebody's like. Somebody's like unto him. But nobody else, he's not like unto anybody else. Messiah is the archetype. Messiah is the archetype. He's the one, right? Here, let's go over here real quick. What does this say? I got to see this and read the King James version of this without. Here, hold on, let me put this over here. Sometimes you just gotta have the King James version. You know what I'm saying? Hold on.
That's the thing. You got so many.
Read verse 12.
2.
Verse 2, my father.
Looking unto Yeshua, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of Elohim.
Yeshua is the author and the finisher of our faith. And so everything that got to do with this thing, he's the writer of it, and he's the manifester of it.
Mm-hmm.
He's the author and the finisher. What is these words trying to tell us? These words here that Yeshua is. He's the author of it. He's the chief. He's the leader. He's the captain. He's the prince of it. He's the finisher. He's the completer. He's the consummator of it.
Consummator. That's a big one.
And so, again, when we look back to what happened with Avram, I'm saying that Avram is at this kind of a moment in his situation where he's already had kind of this test, which I'm gonna say he failed. He failed the test. He didn't have to give his wife away. He didn't have to do that. The Most High blessed him still and allowed for him to make it through that test. But I feel like, when we think about the trajectory of Avram as he's going, he needs like a boost in this situation because there's some things that he's about to go through, and his test, his faith is going to, in fact, be tested. And so between what we see over here and what we see happens, later, we see this interesting interaction that Avram has with the one, I'm saying with the one who sits on the right hand of the Most High, who is Yeshua. Let's look at it's interesting when we think about Yeshua. You think about Yeshua and when being questioned by the Pharisees, as he a lot of the times was, what Yeshua goes and takes them to. It's funny how he answers a question and he gives you more questions, basically. And that's how he answers it. Let's go down here and see what Yeshua had to say. Because I think that Messiah met with Avram after the battle. Because he said it was Melchizedek. And there's certain qualifications that one has to meet even to be Melchizedek. Read Matthew 22:41 through 46. Hold on a second. Let me get this. In order to even be Melchizedek, you gotta have certain qualifications. But let's just see something real quick. Read 22:41 through 46.
And when the Pharisees were gathered together, Yeshua asked them, saying, "What do you think concerning the Messiah? Whose son is he?" They said to him, "The son of David." He said to them, "Then how does David in the Spirit call him Master, saying, Yahweh said to my Master, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool of your feet? If then David calls him Master, how is he his son?" And no one was able to answer him a word. And from that day on, no one was bold enough to ask him any more questions.
All right, go to 26. Go to 26 and 63. You want to sit up here and ask me something? Let me ask you something. Read 62. Just start at 62.
And the high priest stood up and said to him, "Have you no answer to make? What do these witness against you?" But Yeshua remained silent. So the high priest said to him, "I put you to oath by the living Elohim that you say to us, if you are the Messiah, the son of Elohim." Yeshua said to him, "You have said it. Besides, I say to you, from now on you shall see the Son of Adam sitting at the right hand of the power and coming on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his garment, saying, "He who has blasphemed. Why do we need any more witnesses? See, now you have heard his blasphemy."
Yeshua basically said he was Melchizedek to them. They asked him, "You the Messiah? You the Messiah?" He said, "You said it. You said I was Messiah. What I got to answer you, you already said who I was." And then he quotes Psalms 110, which talks about Messiah and saying that he's after the order of Messiah. I mean, Melchizedek. And so again, when we think about Melchizedek, I'm saying we can't think about Melchizedek as a man, because when we think about the order of Melchizedek, it's somebody who sits at the right hand of the Most High, and there's only one person who sits at the most right hand of Most High is Messiah. And so it got to be Messiah. It can't be nobody else, because who sits on the right hand of the Messiah? Nobody. Read Hebrews 7, start with verse 11.
Truly, then, if the perfection were through the Levitical priesthood, for under it the people were given the Torah, why was there still need for another priest to arise according to the order of Melchizedek, and not be called according to the order of Aaron? For the priesthood being changed of necessity, there takes place a change of law also. For he of whom this is said belongs to another tribe, from which no one had attended at the slaughter place.
So hold on a second. So when we think about priests, again, the writer of Hebrews has the same problem that I have. When I think about a priest, I'm thinking about the Levites, right? And so the Levites, those are the priests that I know. And so when we think about the priesthood, if we're saying Melchizedek is a priest, where did he come from? Because he's not from the tribe of the priests that the priest is from. They're from the Levites. Where's he from? He's before the Levites.
He's from the priest of priests.
The priest of priests. The Lord of lords. Right? Okay, keep going. Verse, would you read? 14.
Mm-hmm. For it is perfectly clear that our master arose from Yehuda, a tribe about which Moshe never spoke of concerning priesthood.
Never talked about them as being priests.
And this is clearer still if another priest arises in the likeness of Melchizedek, who has become not according to the Torah of fleshly command, but according to the power of an endless life.
Wait a second. So if somebody was to arise in the likeness of Melchizedek, the thing that would cause them to arise would be the power of an endless life. That would be the thing that would cause them to even be in the likeness of Melchizedek, would be this power of an endless life. Not according to fleshly command, not according to bloodline, but of the power of endless life. 17.
For he does witness, you are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek.
Okay, so when we think about the order of Melchizedek, if we say that Melchizedek was his own thing, and there's an order that he belongs to, anybody who comes after that order, they come according to the power of an endless life, not according to fleshly command. So even if we say then that Melchizedek was somebody apart from Yeshua, somebody, in order to come after the order of Melchizedek, will have to come according to the power of an endless life, not according to fleshly command, or in other words, bloodline. But the problem with thinking about it like that is now you got Melchizedek who's on the right hand and Yeshua who's coming, who's on the right hand. Can't have two. It's only one. Let's drop down to 22. Matter of fact, I don't want to skip 9. Just keep on reading. 18.
For there is indeed a setting aside of the former command because of its wickedness, and unprofitableness. For the Torah perfected not, but the bringing in a better expectation through which we draw near to Elohim, and it was not without an oath. For they indeed became priests without an oath, but he became priest with an oath by him who said to him, Yahweh has sworn and shall not regret. You are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. By as much as this, Yeshua has become a guarantor of a better covenant. And indeed, those that became priests were many because they were prevented by death from continuing. But he, because he remains forever, has an unchangeable priesthood. Therefore, he is also able to save completely those who draw near to Elohim through him, ever living to make intercession for them.
So there is something that exists inside of Melchizedek and those Moshe. There's something that exists inside of Melchizedek that is greater than what's inside of those that are priests after the fleshly command, that allows them to be ever present and be in this unchangeable priesthood and cause them to be able to remain forever. He's ever living and he's able to make intercession for those that need intercession to be made. By the way, when you think about the Torah, a priest wasn't able to fight in the war because he always had to be clean. He touched a dead body, he would become unclean. So if he went to war, he's going to touch a dead body. He's going to be the propagator of dead bodies. Avram just got finished making a whole bunch of dead bodies. And then once he's done making these dead bodies, he needed intercession to be made for himself. From going in there and slewing all them people and chasing them as far as the eye could see. And then lo and behold, the one and only one who's able to make intercession for him forever, Melchizedek, who comes out of nowhere in his time of need. Okay, let me go to let's go back to the beginning of this chapter here. Read for us 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, 4. This Melchizedek, sovereign of Shalem, priest of the Most High Elohim, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the sovereigns and blessed him, to whom also Abraham gave a 10th part of all, his name being translated indeed first sovereign of righteousness, and then also sovereign of Shalem, that is sovereign of peace. Without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but having been made like the Son of Elohim, remains a priest for all time.
How you gonna have somebody after the order of Melchizedek when there's only one? He remains a priest forever. It can only be one. It's not multiple ones. It's only one. It's the same one that was back there with Abraham. The same one that back then he didn't have a father, he didn't have a mother, he don't have no genealogy, he don't have the beginning of days, and he don't have the ending of life. But that one was made, he was made like the Son of Elohim, and he remains a priest forever. Mm-hmm. And so this is telling us who the priest after the order of Melchizedek is. It's telling us it's Yeshua. It's telling us this is Yeshua that we talking with, that we dealing with. Yeshua met with Amraphel in this land after he killed these people and chased them.
Yeshua said he did. Well, he said before Abraham was, I am.
He did say that. What?
Did you talk about the mystical interlude though? Like it seemed like he just came out and he was about to go talk to the king of Sodom, and then before he
no,
it's like it just got inserted in there. Like
I
it
didn't.
Just got dropped in there.
I didn't talk about the mystical interlude. But that's an interesting point that you bring up that I brought up a long time ago. That when you think about even the placement of the situation, because Melchizedek wasn't the king of Sedom. He wasn't the king of Sodom. And even though that's where it seems like Avram was headed, he meets with this other king. And even when you think about the people, like read 17 and 18 again.
17 and 18 says, and after his return from the striking of Kedorlaomer and the sovereigns who were with him, the sovereign of Sodom came out to meet him at the valley of Shaweh, that is the sovereign's valley. And Melchizedek, sovereign of Shalem, brought out bread and wine. Now he was a priest of the Most High El.
Was the king of Salem hanging out with these wicked gangs? Just like how Lot kind of was in the midst of these wicked people. Or was the Most High like, you don't gotta deal with these people, you could just deal with me. I'll deal with you. You know what I'm saying? You done already said what everything you got to say to those people. I'm gonna have this situation with you now. And that's what happened. So we have this kind of a thing that happens where the story was moving in one direction, and then now all of a sudden we have this encounter that Avram has. And then when we look more into the scriptures, we see that Melchizedek has a particular criteria that exists within itself, that if these particular things are connected to being who he is as far as qualifications, he's not, there's a physical part that's missing, like having a father and a mother in genealogy, like having a beginning and an end, like regular human beings do. Remaining forever. He, like, part of this priesthood is that the priesthood is unchanging.
Mm-hmm.
It's different.
Don't pass on.
Is the Melchizedek priesthood actually is the archetype for the Levitical priesthood. Only the Levitical priesthood is hindered by its physicalness.
Hindered because people die.
Yeah, people die. Yeah. So in that regard, it's less than, because for the Melchizedek priesthood, you only need one priest. You just get one priest the one time, and he's just always a priest. But in the Levitical priesthood, they're human, so they gotta just live for a time and do priestly works for a time. And so when we look at, again, we look at Genesis 14, and we see this meeting with Melchizedek with Avram. It's interesting that, when we see this, that, to me, it's blatant. To me, it's kind of just, it's just giving you the whole picture. As soon as it says Melchizedek, you got to know that that's not a regular man, right? But we also know of Yeshua that he's not a regular man, right? That he was before. He's from before, right? If he said in John 17:5, if he says this, if he says verse 3 down to 5.
Verse 3 down to 5 says, "And this is everlasting life, that they should know you, the only true Elohim, and Yeshua Messiah, whom you have sent. I have esteemed you on the earth."
Hold on. Wait a second. Sometimes the scriptures don't really give you the right words. Sometimes we just need that KJV. KJV don't always let you down. All right, read what verse was you looking at?
For 3 through 5. "And this is life eternal, that they might know thee, the only true Elohim, and Yeshua Messiah, whom thou hast sent. I have glorified thee on the earth. I have finished the work which thou gavest me to do. And now, O Father, glorify thou me with thine own self, with the glory which I had with thee before the world was."
There's a glory that Messiah had that was with the Father before the world was. So if it was before the world was, we could probably say it was before the physical birth of Yeshua, unless the world started after that. Like, what's he saying? He said, "Glorify thou me with thine own self, with the glory which I had with thee before the world was." If it was before the world was, then he had it probably before Avram became Abraham. He probably had it before the meeting of Melchizedek and Avram, because he had it before the world even was. He had it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, according to what Yeshua is saying in these red letters over here, and considering when we look at Hebrews, the way it talks about Melchizedek, telling us that Yeshua is after the order of Melchizedek, and it gives us all these qualifications which only Yeshua could meet. When we look back in Bereshit, where it talks about this, I want to say actual Melchizedek, how is it not talking about Yeshua? If it's not talking about Yeshua, it's talking about some other guy who's at the right hand of the Father, which is a problem. Because there's only one right hand, right? There's only Messiah who's over there. Okay. Okay, so all right. So let's go back. Let's go back to Genesis and finish up with Genesis 14 over here. What in the, my cursor? My cursor is I know, but it also went to my iPad.
Oh, what's your iPad?
Apple products. Okay.
You have 3 screens? Oh.
Yeah, I got 3 screens. I manipulate my iPad with this mouse. Okay, sorry. I don't want to do any Apple commercials. I do one for free. Okay, so let's go down. Let's go down. And then so lastly, we see with Avram, who of course gives all honor to the Most High. Think about this. Think about this lastly. Why do he even need to give honor to Melchizedek if it's not a manifestation of the Most High? What he has to say over here is saying, you know, none of this stuff that I've done just now has anything to do with me. I only want to give honor to the Most High for this victory that I'm making. Right? He has so much integrity in, you know, what he's doing. He don't want it to be said that he gained from these people that he conquered. He only wants the glory and the honor to go to the Most High. Like when you go out and fight for somebody, you come back and give your king, your priest, his dues at the end. Avram came back and gave his king, priest, his dues. The forever priest, the one that's priest forever. Physical manifestation of Yeshua before the incarnation of Messiah. So, all right, so that is chapter 14. That's what we see over here in chapter 14. Does anybody left have any last questions or comments before we go ahead and be done for today? All right, so that being said, y'all willing, we will be back on next Shabbat, continuing with our look at Avram in the book of Bereshit. Hopefully, everybody who is subscribed has seen our little Sukkot reel, all the fun and excitement that we had over in wherever we was. Some undisclosed location in Pennsylvania mountains. Yah willing, we'll be back on next week, and say Shabbat Shalom to everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Enjoy the rest of your week. Shabbat and the rest of your week.
Yeah.